If you've been thinking about joining us for summer camp, consider this last call. The Profitable Podcast Summer Camp registration closes June 6th, and we kick off June 12th. This is the only time we'll be running this program this year, and if your podcast hasn't been pulling its weight in your sales process and in your business, this is how you change it. We'll clean up your strategy, build your repeatable sales series, and plan content that drives Q4 sales without the last-minute panic, scramble, and oh should I's. If you want your podcast to support your biggest sales season, this is the time to make it happen. Registration is open now at uncommonlymore.com/summercamp. Make sure you reserve your bunk before they're all filled up. It's June. It's month 6 of 12. We are wrapping up the last month of our second quarter. We are at the halfway point of the year. And so today, I want us to take a beat and look at our show and make sure it's doing its job. Welcome to the More Profitable Podcast with Stacey Harris. I'm Stacey, and this is the spot to learn more about the strategies, tactics, and tools you need to build your more profitable podcast. My team and I work every day with podcasters like you to shift shows from frustrating time sucks to productive members of your sales team, because your show should be built to generate and convert leads. So let's get into it. I don't know about you, love, but for me, Q1 crawled and Q2 has really flown by, for better or worse, right? And as we hit June, there, for me, internally in my business, is sort of this checkpoint, for lack of a better way to phrase this. And so I spend this last month of Q2 doing some things. One, we're getting ready to do quarterly production calls with our clients because we also need to do a mid-year check-in with them. But internally in my business, I'm looking at, yes, how my podcast is working, but I'm also looking at what's happening in my business. Where am I in relation to the things I said I wanted to do this year? And so we're going to look at this because this is the More Profitable Podcast, and that's what I do, is I talk podcasting with you. We're going to be looking at our podcast today, but I want to share, and I think it's important to mention, that doing this in isolation from looking at anything else, or instead of looking at anything else, is going to be less helpful. And so I really encourage you to set aside some time this month to do what we're going to talk through today. And look at your podcast, but also look at your marketing in general. Look at your offers, look at your business, look at your goal, look at your life, look at how you're spending your time. Take this moment to check in and make sure that everything is how you want it to be. I mean, for as far as we control anything that's happening around us, but make sure that the things you have your hands on are where you want them to be, and or lining you up with the things that is you want to be lined up with, the direction you want to be moving in. And I know that that is an unnecessary aside in the totality of this episode and the purpose of our conversation today. But I have been around long enough, my ye old age. I have been around content enough to know that you're going to get hit with a lot of these episodes this month and next month. And to the point in which I hesitated putting this out. Every year I think about doing a mid-year episode. Some years we've done them, other years we haven't. And I wrestle with the idea because I know you're going to be fire hose with this. And it feels like one more thing. And I don't want it to be just one more thing. I don't want it to be something you're supposed to do because you're a business owner and because you're a good podcaster and because blah, 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 blah. I don't want this to be a should. I get so excited to do this check-in. I get so excited to sit down and slow things down, honestly. If I'm being really, really frank about it, because the world, things are happening fast. Personally, professionally, for me right now, there's a lot going on. Not all good, not all bad, but there's a lot. And so for me to see the to-dos show up in Monday, or appointments with myself show up on my calendar, or the people in my world who support me show up on my calendar. There's something really comforting about it, because I know it means we're going to slow things down just a bit and look around. And again, this is wholly an aside. This should absolutely be a call to action to like sign up for something or like book something. But I wanted to take a minute before we get into the minutia of it, before we get into the meaningful conversation we're about to have, to say, if you're coming at this idea of a mid-year check-in with a lot of fear or a lot of concern that you're not going to be where you want to be, and so that keeps you from looking at things, your podcast or otherwise, you're not going to get going in the direction you want to go. You're not going to get to the destination you want to arrive at if you don't check in with the GPS from time to time. I don't know if you what's coming to mind for me right now is, and this is going to wildly date me, although I don't think anyone in this who listens to this show is young enough to not know what this is, so we should be good. But back in the day, there was a thing called MapQuest and a thing called triptychs from AAA. And you would go to AAA and they would give you a triptych, which was basically a step-by-step directions from your starting point to your end point. And you could go, if you were a AAA member, and you could get these for free, and they were great. And somewhere around the late 90s, early 2000s, triptychs just turned into MapQuest instructions printed out and bound in like a little, those teeth spiral binder things, like those. And it was bad. But my mom and I, got one of these triptych MapQuest things to go on a vacation we were going on. And we went to AAA and we picked it up and I was excited and we're going through it and we're like, oh, this is fine. This is fine. And we read it and then we started going. Like it was departure day, right? We got so lost because we read the directions before we started. And there weren't that many turns. Like it was basically like get on highway, go. It was a simple thing. However, we ended up super lost because we didn't check in again with it. We didn't revisit it. And we got so off track that I had to, and again, early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, I had to pull out an actual whole ass map and find our way back to the road we were supposed to be on and get us to our destination. It's to this day one of my mom and I's favorite funny stories to tell and laugh about. But for me, when I see these to-dos for my mid-year check-ins, when I see these appointments with the people who support me, when I see these appointments pop up for the people who I support, for our clients, as we go into getting ready to do our Q3 production calls with our clients as we wrap up Q2 here. When I see those happen, it is my reminder to check in on the triptych. It is my reminder to check the directions that I printed out at the start of the year and make sure that I'm still on track to the destination I wanted to be on. And so as you sit down to do this, do not think of it as a pass-fail system. Do not think of this as a progress report you would have gotten in elementary school, which may or may not have included some information about your status as a social butterfly. I know all of mine did. Is very friendly, but has difficulty focusing. Yeah, it's a wonder I was diagnosed with ADHD later. Anyways, I want you to step away from the idea that anything we're going to discover here means that you're doing something wrong. What any information we gather is going to mean is that we need to change freeways, turn on a different road, stop and get gas. I don't know. But it's just an indication of our next step. It is not an indication of how good or not good you are at this. With that, I'm going to put away my sort of emotional soapbox for a second. I want to talk about why now. For a lot of our clients, and for me, as we hit this sort of like late Q2, early Q3 window of, for at least my half of the hemisphere, summer break, things get a little slower. People are spending more time with family, maybe they're traveling, whatever the case may be. More often than not, what I find, especially for my clients, is they're sort of between their real firm sales windows. They've got open enrollment or they've got launches for different programs in the spring and the fall. But in the summer, it'll be like one-on-one offers or stuff that's more like leveraged, like courses, templates, things like that. There's not a big sort of high ticket sales push right now. And so it can feel sort of counterintuitively, it can feel like summer is really slow. But that slow time, and what I'm going to actually sort of reframe for you as that spacious time, is actually what allows us to make these changes, test these tweaks, play with things as we're gearing up. And so doing this now, as we're at the beginning of June, gives us the opportunity to see what it is we want to test and experiment as we move through those other months. It's one of the reasons why, we've got the podcast housekeeping series in August, is because when I did my mid-year check-in 3 or 4 years ago, when we started running that series, I was looking at my numbers and I was looking ahead and at what I was going to be doing for that Q3, and I was looking back to see how content had performed in previous Q3s, and I noticed there was that dip. And so we built this repeatable series, which now has created not a dip, but an actual peak on our annual sort of download numbers that you see every month or every year. It's crazy. But also, it spoke to, I knew my clients, and a lot of I think like a third of our production clients take sabbatical in August. And guess what? A lot of them listen to and think through that series before we sit down in September to plan Q4. Because we'll go through and we'll say, hey, are there any things we want to tweak here? Any things we want to chat? Is it time to update the cover? Is it time to play with some of our intro, outro music? How have we been feeling about our calls to action, etc.? We go through all of that in the series. And so even our production clients will listen to that as a way to sort of prime themselves up for that Q4 call, where a lot of times we make these decisions. Do we want to make changes now? Do we want to do them in Q1? That can vary, but it serves as this annual checkpoint. So I want you to take this time now to do the evaluation of the things we're going to talk through, because now is your time to tweak. Now is your time to experiment. And you never know what's going to come out of that. It could be an annual series that ends up being one of your top downloaded episodes. Some of my most popular episodes are episodes from that series. What's really funny is the different episodes are not all from the same release year. It's strange. It's strange. The other benefit to doing this now is, as we talked about, you might be between enrollment periods, might be between program launches. Maybe again, you're working with clients one-on-one right now, or you're selling those leveraged offers. But for a lot of the people who I work with, that Q4 launch is a big one. It is setting up. I mean, we've got clients who the bulk of their next year's revenue is booked in Q4 of this year. And so we're looking at sort of their financial footing and positioning before we even get into next year with the Q4 launch. I want to make sure that the show is set up to do what it needs to do in the time in which we see that buying energy ramp up, when we see that interest ramp up, when we see that timing start to come together. And I don't want you to be looking around going, oh, this isn't working and we need to make 6 changes, when you're also enrolling for the program, built or making changes to your program, pre-enrollment. I don't want all of those things to be converged. And so doing this now means we get ahead so that we're not burning ourselves out and overwhelming ourselves when we get to that late Q3, Q4 window. But also it means we get to take steps now. And we talked about this last week, I think. We want to take steps now to set up those sales for September, for October, for November. Especially if you're somebody who's enrolling people into a high-end mastermind, a 12-month contract for the next calendar year, whatever it is. All right? So, quick and dirty, a couple of signs your podcast needs a mid-year tune-up. One, you're just not seeing any leads come in. More often than not, this is not actually an audience issue. More often than not, this is a CTA issue. This is a call to action issue. They are either non-existent or just weak sauce. And again, I don't mean this in a like you suck at it way. I mean it in a like we're making a soft invite. Like passive aggressive sales offers are a real thing, right? And if you like this too, then maybe you could join me for like no. We don't need no. If this work is speaking to you now, here's where we're doing this. I'm going to give you a live example. If you know there are show changes you want to make, if you know there are structural changes you want to make, if you know that you want to be building and creating content that can serve as a sales asset year after year, this is the work we're doing in the summer camp. We start with a much deeper version of sort of the rough audit we're talking about today. It's one of the reasons we're talking about audits is because I'm getting ready to do this inside a summer camp because that's our week 1 workshop. And so do you see how my introducing that to you, by the way, uncommonlymore.com/summercamp, me introducing that to you and me tying it to what we're talking about is a whole lot stronger than me being like, and if this was interesting, check it out. And that's it. That's the whole thing. That's what I want you to look at. So if you're seeing those download numbers stay the same or go up, but you're just not seeing leads come in, look at your calls to action. I'm going to challenge you to listen to your own show. Listen to what you're saying. Are you inviting people in? Are you tying your expertise to your offers? Are you showing them what's possible on the other side and then inviting them to take that step with you? If you're seeing that you're getting people to maybe raise their hand and they're just not showing up to the call, or they're just not converting, then it might not be a call to action. It might be a listener client fit issue. You might be building content that speaks to somebody other than your best fit client. And so you've got to look at, who am I talking to? Who am I building this content for? A big red flag. I had a client I worked with early this year in an intensive, and this was something that came up. Really, really interesting show. Great content. Like, it was really, really interesting. It was not for her right fit clients. Mostly because her right fit clients had already tried and failed at the thing she was supporting them with. However, the bulk of her content was geared towards beginners getting started. And so when people were listening to the show and sort of self-identifying readiness as they're going through the content, like, oh, this might be a fit for me. They're going, oh yeah, I need help with these things. And they would reach out and they'd be like, oh, I can't make that investment work. I'm not there. Like I'm not at the point where I could do that, because they were building content for beginners and selling offers to folks who were intermediate to advanced in the niche that they were selling to. And so they're right there, without looking at just your numbers, but just like download numbers, you're seeing a lot of really important information in just listening to your show. We learned 2 really big things, and all of those things are easy tweaks that are completely in your control as the host. This isn't about going out and hiring somebody for production. This isn't about going out and hiring somebody to run ads to your podcast. It's about making the thing you're already doing work more effectively. So as you're auditing your show, I want you to be looking at, Are your leads actually finding their way to you? What does your CTA look like in your show? Is the person you're talking to on the podcast actually your right fit client? Are you making content that is moving people closer to a buyer decision? Or are you building content that is a distraction because it's just not where they're at? That's where I want you to be looking. Because honestly, here's where things go sideways. There's no clear connection between your content and your offer. There's no clear next step of I listen, cool, totally head nod, totally get it, love this, where can I have more? Oh, you didn't tell me where I could find more. Oh, let me check out the next episode. Okay, let me check out the next episode. Okay, let me check out the next episode. And that's largely a result, frankly, of just like sitting down and being like, what do my listeners need to hear today? That's what that's how we got here more often than not. Is we get to this point of like just checking the box, just getting an episode out. And it means we have detached from moving people towards the goal. All right? So, audit your content. Look at what's working. Looking at where people are getting their next step. Do you have one there? Optimize your CTAs. Include strong calls to action. Don't be cute. Don't be shy. Don't be making soft suggestions. Have a clear understanding of why the episode exists and what it's supposed to help the listener do. The best way to be of service is not to fire hose them with information. The best way to be of service is to help them understand how they move forward. That means helping them self-identify readiness, understand what's possible on the other side of your offer, and have a real, actual, firm understanding of what your offer is and how they buy it. This is what we build in summer camp because this is what's work. This is what we build in summer camp because this is what works. We've got to be building assets, not episodes. And as you're listening to your show, I'm going to guess that as you review these first 6 months of the year, you're going to see a lot of episodes. If you're seeing only episodes and not assets, let's spend this summer fixing it so then you can take next summer off. Because one of the things we're going to do is build a repeatable series. Right there, I can buy you a month off of your podcast next summer if we do this work now. If we take a little bit of time up front, we're going to take this last month of Q2, or really the last couple weeks of Q2, and the first month of Q3. That's all I'm asking for. And we're going to build your more profitable podcast in Profitable Podcast Summer Camp. I want you to go to uncommonlymore.com/summercamp. I want you to reserve your bunk so you can join me at the campfire. I'm full of these summer camp cliches, by the way. I'm so freaking excited about this. So that next year, when we sit down and we talk about this mid-year check-in, you can confidently say that you've built assets that you're able to repurpose, that you're able to use to establish your thought leadership, to plant the seeds for your fall launch, to fuel the sales of your leveraged or one-on-one stuff that you do have available in the summer. That's what I want for you. And that's what's possible on the other side of summer camp. So join me, uncommonlymore.com/summercamp. We are in the last couple of days to join for this. So if you want to do this, if you have questions, now is the time. We start next week. That's it. This is the last episode you will hear me talk about this summer camp because after this, we're closing the doors. uncommonlymore.com/summercamp. Reserve your bunk, and I will see you this summer. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Remember that content consumption does not make changes. So commit to doing something from today's episode. Maybe it's taking action on what we talked about. Maybe it's reaching out to me and learning more about podcast strategy intensives, or what podcast production looked like with our team. All of that is over at uncommonlymore.com. And if you haven't yet signed up for the podcast newsroom, I want to remind you that is a great next step. If you're not really sure what comes next, hang out over there. Get those exclusive private episodes. That's over at podcastnewsroom.com. And the last favor I will ask, because social proof is endlessly important for sure, is to leave a rating or review for the show. If you go to ratethispodcast.com/more, that's the easiest way to do it. But I would love to hear what you thought of the show, what you think of the show, and if the show has been helpful for you. I can't wait to chat with you. So this is just the start of the conversation. Reach out so we can keep it going. Talk soon.